Uh-oh, this is pretty loud. Can you turn it down? I know. Well, you know, just play the what do they call them? The movables. Jaya Radha Madhava. It's good. Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Paradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Okay, let's see. Where are we? You sure? You're outvoted. Yeah, we haven't done this one. It's a famous verse where you die in the mode of goodness, you go up. You die in the mode of ignorance, you go down. Yeah, I would remember that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 15th day of May 2018 in SanDiego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 14, entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. Text number 18, page 581. Urdvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasaha chaganya guna vrittistha adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasaha Chaganya guna vrittista adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdvam gachanti sattvastha Madhye tishtanti rajasaha Jaganya guna vrittista Adho gachanti tamasaha. Go ahead, Marcy. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha Madhye tishtanti rajasaha Jaganya guna vrittista Adho gachanti tamasaha Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha Madhye tishtanti rajasaha Jaganya guna vrittista Adho gachanti tamasa. Page 581. Urdhvam, upwards. Gachanti, go. Sattvastha, those situated in the mode of goodness. Madhye, in the middle. Tishtanti, dwell. Rajasaha, those situated in the mode of passion. Jaganya, of abominable. Guna, quality. Vrittistaha, whose occupation. Adha, down. Gachanti, go. Tamasaha, persons in the mode of ignorance. Translation. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets, where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka. But the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth in the mode of passion or ignorance cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by a machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It is the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life, birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasaha is very significant here. Tamasa indicates those who stay continuously in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is an opportunity for men in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity will certainly continue in the lower modes. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So there's a kind of battle going on in the material world, a battle for our consciousness. And we don't start on a level playing field. We come into this world and we have certain tendencies, karma. We're born in a certain family, born in a certain species. A lot of our, especially in the human form, we have a chance to actually change things. Otherwise, it's more or less locked in. But when one is born in a dog's body, he's going to act like a dog. Not much you can do about it. What to speak of the lower species, you know. The living entity itself, or himself, is always pure. There's this little phrase, one of these nice little Upanishadic phrases, asango yayam purushaha. Purushaha refers to the living entity. In the material world, he's in the mode of the enjoyer, that's Purusha. So, asango yayam Purusha means that certainly this jiva or Purusha does not actually associate with the material elements. We don't mix. But because we're very minute, we have the tendency to come under the influence and control of these material elements and consider ourselves part of the material world, when actually we're not. So that's kind of been very encouraging, because it means by the proper means, bhakti yoga, we can realize that we're not really part of this material world and diminish, and even to the point of nil, the effect that the material energy has on us. That's really one of the byproducts of Krishna consciousness. So, but the understanding of the existence of the modes and how the modes are working is essential, because in the present environment that we are, the modes of passion and ignorance are always pulling at us. If you allow them to enter your senses and your mind, if you associate with them, say, then they're sure to affect you. You'll be in a certain mode according to that. So Krishna consciousness is a means of counteracting this influence of the lower modes of nature and rising up very effectively into the higher modes. And the Prabhupada makes this point in this purport that even one in the mode of passion and ignorance can, by the means of Krishna conscious practice, bhakti yoga, rise up to the higher modes. And we'll see at the end of the chapter, even transcend the modes and come to the platform. Prabhupada uses this word a lot. Platform means that you don't fall. In other words, if you continue doing what you're doing regularly to bring you to that state, you'll stay in that state. So this verse specifically describes the destinations. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. So urdhva means upward. There are all kinds of realms above us. And the thing about a devotee is that we don't want to go to any of those material realms. Here is describing material energy at work, the modes of nature. If one is in the mode of goodness, quite strongly, then he'll go up. You certainly go up on this plane. If you're in the mode of goodness, but you're still tinged with a certain amount of passion, you'll have a better situation in your next life. And if you're really strongly in the mode of goodness, you can go up to the higher planets. Now, mostly we find that to stay in those higher modes, or modes of goodness, you have to cultivate various parts of the Vedas that teach that material mode of goodness. That's mentioned in the 9th chapter. Tetam, what is it? I always forget that verse. That those who worship me indirectly, they drink the soma ras. You remember that? And then they go up. This is text number, yeah. It's 20. Trividya, Mom. According to the three Vedas, you know, the Karmakanda. Somapa, Puta Papa. The word Puta means purified. By drinking the Soma Ras and acting according to the three Vedas, knowers of the three Vedas, they perform sacrifice, and they're worshipping me, but they're worshipping me to go to the heavenly planets. So that's a mistake. And punyam asad surendra lokam, if they're pious enough and they do it properly, they can approach the Indraloka, the main heavenly planet. And ashtanti divyan divideva bhoga, and they can enjoy godly delights. Ashtana means to eat. You're actually consuming, you know. But then what's the next verse? Tetam bhukva swagalokam vishalam chine punye marjalokam vishanti. You eventually run out of your pious credit, and you come back down again to Martyaloka, the world of death. And so you're just going and coming, going and coming. You're not actually making any progress. So, but still, that's evidence of the mode of goodness. You know, you can rotate. But do we really want that? You know, we don't want that. If you're enamored of the description of what's in the heavenly planets, just as people travel all over the world, they become enamored. They see an advertisement for this place, this cruise ship, that cruise ship. And if they have the facility, they'll you know, save their money and go on the trip and then experience that. And now I'm enjoying, you know. But then the cruise is over, you have to come back and work. It's just like that. So, and it's Jaganya Gunavritti style. Jaganya means abominable. if you're stuck in the abominable mode of ignorance, your situation is very dangerous, and you could very well lose the human form of life, which we learned in the second chapter, is the Mahato Bayat, the most fearful danger that we face, is losing the human form of life. So Krishna conscious devotees, we learn again and again how precious is this human form, and how precious is our time in this human form, to be awake. In other words, the real value of it is not to just waste it in animalistic activities, but to inquire into the absolute truth. You can see how rare it is. There's more or less the same 5 of us here every night, with a few variations. You know, there's some out there in internet land. But, you know, it's not that there's hundreds and hundreds of other people who are studying at home, I don't think. You know, maybe there are. We have our chakra, you know, group. But it takes someone who's very fortunate to come to the understanding of even inquiring into these matters and trying to improve your situation in the material world through the process of bhakti yoga. So we hit the lottery. I mean, come on, who cares? You know, $415 million. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it's insane amounts. But it's just, you know, you can see. I used to walk around the block. Now I just walk around the temple because they opened this gate here. But I would see, you know, oh, 215 million. Should I buy a ticket? No, I never thought like that. But you can see it's such an allurement. You know, we never had stuff like that when we were kids, did we? I mean, there was no lotteries. Even, you know, off-track betting was illegal. I mean, when that came in on the horses, I confess, when I was 18, 19 years old, I used to go to the track and bet on the horses. I had a period when I did that. But you had to go to the track. There was no, you know, why? Because things were a little more together then, and they understood that it's bad for people to get involved in. Okay, if you really, you know, you go to Las Vegas. Then they opened up Atlantic City, which is near New York, you know, and that took a whole bunch of people away from Las Vegas because they were coming from the city right down to Atlantic City. Now Atlantic City has gone down because now you can bet on the internet, right? And who needs, you don't even have to leave your room. You can degrade yourself completely just sitting at home. So, you know, all of that, there's so much influence dragging us down. And Krishna consciousness is meant to give you a very strong influence of pulling you up. That's the whole, you know, quality of kirtan. Kirtan is Lord Chaitanya's gift. You don't sit quietly alone in a room. You know, you don't go off somewhere. It's not. You come together and use the most powerful conditioning features. They're called, you may not know this, Taurya Trikena. Did I ever tell you about that? 3 things: singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. Very powerful. And we even have the drug, prasadam, you know. But seriously, singing, dancing, playing musical instruments. So many people are getting so conditioned out there. The clubs and the music and the whole thing, you know, the music festivals, summer coming, right? Singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, and smoking, you know, drinking and taking drugs. So Lord Chaitanya said, we'll take those very things and we'll turn it into this transcendental sacrifice called Sankirtan Yajna. And they're all important. You know, I love the fact that kirtan is so widespread and people, you know, but I don't buy the sitting so much. The sitting is, the dancing is important. Hare Krishna. So, what does that do? It's completely wholesome, you know. The exercise is there, but in the meantime, you're being, you know, your mind is filled with the holy name. It's much easier to concentrate when the drum is playing and everything is going on and you're dancing. So, and what happens? You rise above the modes. You're no longer attracted. I like to tell this story. I've told it so many. I have so many stories. Only so many stories. Philadelphia, 1981. We used to go out every Saturday night downtown. There was a place, I forget the name of it now, but it was a square with no vehicular traffic, and all around the square there were businesses. You know, it was a place where people come. It's kind of like Horton Plaza, you know, where people just go and they're in the plaza. They don't, you know. But it was nicer than that. There was more room. So we go down there and chant, you know. So, you've heard the story. So you chant, and there was this, I don't know what was it, if they only made cupcakes or something, but it was like cookies and cupcakes. And they would pump the fragrance of fresh cooked cookies and cupcakes out into that square. And people would say, oh, let's have a cupcake or a cookie. You know, they would get attracted by this fragrance. So we're also breathing in the air and we're also smelling it. But it doesn't come to the point of where you want to actually eat something like that, because it's not offered. It's not prasadam, you know. So you can sense the attraction, but you're protected from it because you're Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I remember when I used to go down, I don't know if did we have a New Year's Harinam last New Year's? I was sick. I don't know if we actually went out. We used to do it every year. Did. And it's pretty wild down there on New Year's. You know, all kinds of people come down to the gas lamp in SanDiego. Very crowded. They wouldn't let us stand. You know, the cops said, you got to move along. We'd stop and people would gather, you know, because there's something going on for free. You don't have to pay $100 to get in the bar, you know. So I remember we're coming up to a corner, and there's these ladies standing on the corner, and they hardly had any clothes on. You know, it was just like, really? I mean, in public. But you know, we're just chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. There was no, you know, it didn't reach the point of any kind of attraction or anything. And you can feel the protection. You know, people remembering Haridas Thakur or whatever. So the idea is that the Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name, especially in congregation, is very powerful. It brings you up the modes, and if you keep doing, you know, if you stay in Krishna consciousness, keep chanting and doing Krishna consciousness thing, you can stay on there. Even after less than a week, if you do it right, you feel yourself, you know, so benefiting so much, becoming joyful, peaceful, and not attracted and obsessed and depressed by all these things. So that's our Urdhvam Gachanti. We don't want to go to the heavenly planets here. We want to go all the way back to Godhead. Next verse, 19. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yadadrashtanupashyati Gunebhyas chaparam veti madbhavam sodigacchati. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Okay, now comes the kind of the payoff to this whole chapter. One can transcend all the activities of the modes, purport, one can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn this science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes. But when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. Who can remember the verse? 14, Daivi Yesha? Daivi Yesha Gunamayi Mamayadurat. For one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. So the first, there's this nice little triumvirate that Prabhupada gave us. Thinking, feeling, and willing. Ring a bell? That's the functions of the mind. So the first one is thinking. Otherwise, if you're not thinking, then you're just going to be controlled by the modes and by your senses. if it's just the mind and willing. You know, this is like, those who are thoughtful, they're more likely in the mode of goodness. In other words, to consider, is this really good for me to do? Or, you know, the other mode is, if it feels good, do it. That's like the mode of passion or ignorance, you see. So thinking, your intelligence, by studying the Shastra, hearing, and especially if you have someone who can get on your case, in other words, actually you accept one as a guide who's on the transcendental platform. That's the spiritual master. So we're fortunate we have Prabhupada's association here. If we actually try to incorporate these instructions in our life, then it's just like, you know, being directly instructed by Srila Prabhupada. So, but we shouldn't, you know, aspire for a personal spiritual master. As Prabhupada said, he can pull your ear, you know. Otherwise, it's too easy for the mind to say, okay, you know, I've tried it. I've tried Krishna consciousness, now I can go do something else. That's illusion. So in the 3rd chapter, we find this verse, 327. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham itamanyate. This is describing the false ego. So prakriti gunai karmani sarva is directly related to this. That actually everything is being done by the modes of nature. But the fool, one who is bewildered by false ego, ahankara vimudhatma, thinks I'm the doer of everything. In fact, the very word ahankara means I'm doing. Ahankara, I am the doer. So that's the that ahankara is the whole reason we're here in the material world. That false sense of self. You read the 3rd canto, we just went through the instructions of Kapila Dev, and he describes how the false ego, in contact with the mode of passion, with the mode of goodness produces the mind, mode of passion produces the intelligence, mode of ignorance produces all of the sense objects and the senses and all of the devas and everything else. Not the devas, but our entanglement. It all comes from the false ego, the false sense of self. I am an independent enjoyer. Whereas we know that the real swarup, or the actual ego of the soul, who can give the verse, Jivera Sorupoi, Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera, of Krishna, the eternal servant. Not the servant of the senses, not the servant of the mind, you know, of all these different things. So we know that, but still, you know, we're habituated to serving. So it's a whole reconditioning, or deconditioning, let's put it that way. So that we actually spontaneously, ultimately, act in our natural swarup. That's the whole idea. So that's, when you see that there's nothing acting in this world but the modes of nature. Now, we're in this material nature, and it's our tool for serving Krishna. So the whole art and science of bhakti is how to take this material energy that we're in and use it as a means of serving Krishna. Then it can attract us for enjoyment. Just think of this temple. All the effort to get the property and fix it up and paint it and make a direction. It's all simply taking material elements and turning them into a facility to make us more Krishna conscious. That's the whole purpose of this place. But we who are here, especially those who live here, we have a responsibility to keep it in such a way, maintain it so that it does that function. Cleanliness and everything else, the picture's straight, you know. There's Ram and Sita, but they're crooked. No, you know, everything should be... They're not crooked, they're straight. But the point is, this is our place, and Krishna is, you know, I'll tell you, you know, one of my memories, early memories in devotional service, you know, I joined kind of late compared to some others. I was already 25, I'd been through some various things, you know. And so I was very happy to be in the shelter. You know, it's just a wonderful temple. Brooklyn in '73, there were so many devotees, all the artists were there. I mean, it was just like you had these people who seemed to have, you know, were descendants, the gods and goddesses, and they were producing this incredible art. You know, and I didn't know. I thought all of ISKCON was like that, you know, but it happened to be the place where the books were produced. So I remember distinctly, we had kind of a little mini Maha cleanup every morning, because we had so many devotees. Everyone had a little corner to do, you know, 15 minutes, and we had prasadam. So at one point, my duty was to mop down the temple room floor. It was small enough so that one person could do it in maybe 15, 20 minutes. On your knees with the rag and stuff like that. That was the whole thing. So I'm sitting there. I'm there. You know, I distinctly remember this. And the recording had just come out. The one we play every morning, Govind Damani Buddha, as part of an album. And other things on the album, Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Haribol. So there I am. There's Radha Govinda, watching me. The curtains are open. I'm there with my little thing, and I'm chanting, chanting along with the song and bopping. And saying, I'm perfectly situated here. It was, menial service, and it was just such a thing. And what it had been? It had been some kind of a convent home for homeless people, before we got there. And a lot of guys had died in there. In fact, some of the devotees were saying they experienced the ghosts, going on. I never experienced the ghosts directly. But the place had been transformed, by Krishna and Krishna devotees. And it was such a facility. People would come there in the kirtan. Prabhupada came there twice while I was there, which is such an opulence, So that's what this whole movement is for, is to give us an opportunity to rise above the modes, to use the facilities, beginning with our own bodies and minds and everything else, as facilities for serving Krishna and becoming purified of these modes of nature. Okay. Text 20. We're on page 583. Gunanetana tityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkar vimuktom mritam ashnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Purport. How one can stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within the material body, by advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. So now Krishna is speaking about transcending the modes. And this is really the climax of the chapter. Arjun's going to ask him, what are the characteristics of one who transcend, and how does one transcend? That's really a critical question for us. Because without Krishna consciousness, there's no means of transcending the modes. I like to point out that there's a whole industry of psychology and psychiatry and all of these different things. I just read an incredible statistic yesterday that between 2013 and 2016, the diagnosis of depression in America increased like 30 to 40%, especially amongst the young people. And they think that all of this screen time and social media and all of this business is increasing it, isolating people. They're isolating. So that's the sign of the mode of ignorance. So okay, I'm depressed. So let me go to a psychologist and see what I can get. So what they try to do, first I'll give you some pill, to try to just float above it. But really, what the cure, so to speak, is to get you out of that and get you enlivened to really enjoy in this world. Come out from the mode of ignorance to the mode of passion. Then their job is done. Nobody's trying to get you to the mode of goodness. What to speak of this knowledge. But actually you find that devotees, I remember I used to be depressed. I wasn't so depressed when I joined, but I had bouts of it before. But Indra Pramad told me distinctly how his wife had broken up with him and this and that, and he was like depressed. But he found when chanting, he would go on the subway. For a year he was visiting the temple, and he found, hey, I've been chanting for 15 minutes. I'm not depressed anymore, So it has a profound effect. It's so many byproducts of Krishna consciousness. People are spending billions of dollars to try to achieve. You just chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada would like to point out how there's such a big drug problem, But if you become a serious devotee, and then you know, in fact, he even offered to help the government. Just give me a big hall, you know, have big kirtans, and you'll drug peddle. You know. There was an article about crime, also crime, why and what to do. You know. And Prabhupada, he met with some official of the government, and he suggested, yes, just make it available. We'll have kirtan, and you'll see the crime wave will go down. So it's all part of the modes of nature. You know, this criminal mentality, it's a mode of ignorance and passion, you know. But here Krishna is saying, now deha samudbhavam is interesting, means it's associated with the body, or even it says produced of the body, because whatever you do, it has its effect. It has its effect either in your mind or in your body. You know, if so many people, you know, regret, you know, why did I do that when I was a kid? You know, it damaged something, damaged your brain, or you damaged your body in such a way. You know, they have this football game. Football is crazy. I mean, American football. It's been determined for sure that it causes brain damage, even in kids. You know, but they're not giving it up. And I guarantee a lot of these guys, you know, they get into their 40s, 50s, they have to retire, and it's just like a nightmare. They can't sleep, they're always angry, they got the headaches, their wives and family go nuts trying to take care of them. And a lot of them got a regret. You know, they may deny it. Say, why did I do that? You know? I mean, if there's one thing as a mode of passion and ignorance, it's this crazy football thing where the object is to hurt the other person, you know? So this is all part, you know, it's a disease, a part of the modes of nature. So if you come to Krishna consciousness, you can transcend them. And here he said, Janma Mrityu Jara Dukkha. You know, those are the main miseries. You can become free. Vimukto, and taste nectar. So Krishna is giving us a strong inducement here. Because you know, he's described the modes of nature. We can relate to them. I mean, we've all experienced it. But here he's saying now, if one can transcend it, and he's going to give us the means to transcend, one can get free of all miseries, headed by birth, old age, and death, and disease, and taste nectar. You know. So, is it worth it? You know, it's worth investigating it. So the point is, even in this body, even when one is in the material world, one can be transcendental. And we saw it so clearly with Srila Prabhupada himself. You know, coming and struggling for that whole 8-9 months in New York. You know, the Bowery, I've been reading the early Lilamrita lately, you know. He had to face this crazy, you know, this guy, David Allen, who he was rooming with in the Bowery. You know, Prabhupada had to, when he went down, he had to step over the drunk, so they would be, if they were awake, they would politely get out of the way, you know. And this guy was going with LSD. He was getting it, and he went on a bad trip, and he started threatening Prabhupada. Prabhupada ran down the stairs with nothing but the clothes on his back. You know, he's this exalted Vaishnava dealing with these things. Why did he stay? For us. He went through all of this for us. And then Krishna gave him that 26-second avenue where things took off, you know. So, but in all of it, you know, Prabhupada kept his demeanor, his equipoise, didn't freak out, you know, and lament, why did you bring me to this place? You must have had some reason, so why don't you make my, you know, so like make my power of speaking, you know, and it did. So it's Prabhupada is a perfect example of the success in this thing. I think we can also experience it. Okay, one more, and then we'll leave the rest for tomorrow. We should finish this chapter. Now, one thing, very fortunate, we learned this morning about Purushottama Adhika Mas is starting. This is an extra month that's added every few years in the Vaishnava calendar because it's a lunar calendar. And we heard some amazing things this morning about it. But it's apparently very auspicious to read the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita during this month. And I said, why is that? Hey, Purushottama Yoga. It's the Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person, right? It's actually, each of these chapters is called a yoga, different yoga. And that's called Purushottama Yoga. So the Krishna has arranged for us to be mostly during this month coming up, reading this chapter. It's very auspicious. There are other auspicious things I can share with you later. So why don't we just read one more verse? It'll set us up for the final few verses, where Krishna gives the qualities of those who transcended and the means of transcending. Arjuna Vacha Kailingais Trin Gunani Tan Atito Bhavati Prabhu Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? Purport. In this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of nature, material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Okay, so we'll learn more of that tomorrow. We can maybe finish the chapter tomorrow, which would be very auspicious. And right now, nectar devotion or the Krishna book? Krishna book, right? Rest of the week. Okay. So text 22 through 25 tomorrow. Thank you, Ganga Mantri, for visiting us. Were you in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Oh, good. Ganga Mantri is an old member. You joined here in the 80s, right? 1980?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Senior devotee. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we are in Krishna book. And did we finish? I don't think we finished the chapter on Paundraka. And the king of Kashi, his head was thrown in. Boy, it's pretty. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty shocking. Okay. Yeah. All right, so remember, I think at this point, yeah, Akrura has advised Dhritarashtra not to repress and suppress the Pandavas, right? And but Dhritarashtra said he could not accept he appreciated the instructions, but he did not. He said, I can't follow them. Dhritarashtra hinted to Akrura that he had complete faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we learn actually in the Bhagavatam that Dhritarashtra eventually achieved liberation after the whole battle was over. Remember, Akrura told him in no uncertain terms he should get out of the house, and he did with his wife Gandhari. Vidura told him. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Vidura. Oh boy, here they go. Dhritarashtra hinted to Akrura that he had complete faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, he was very partial to his family members. In the very near future, Krishna would vanquish all the members of his family, and in a helpless condition, Dhritarashtra would take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. To show Krishna, his special favor to a devotee, Krishna usually takes away all the object of his material affection, thus forcing the devotee to be materially helpless, with no alternative but to accept the lotus feet of Krishna. This actually happened to Dhritarashtra after the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra could realize two opposing factors acting before him. He could understand that Krishna was there to remove all the unnecessary burdens of the world. His sons were an unnecessary burden, and so he expected that they would be killed. At the same time, he could not rid himself of his unlawful affection for his sons. Understanding these two contradictory factors, he offered his respectful obeisance to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Quote, the contradictory ways of material existence are very difficult to understand. They can be taken only as the inconceivable execution of the plan of the Supreme, who by his inconceivable energy creates this material world and enters into it and sets into motion the three modes of nature. When everything is created, he enters into each and every living entity and into the smallest atom. No one can understand the incalculable plans of the Supreme Lord. So this is Dhritarashtra speaking. After hearing this statement, Akrura could clearly understand that Dhritarashtra was not going to change his policy of discriminating against the Pandavas in favor of his sons. He at once took leave of his friends in Hastinapur and returned to his home in the kingdom of the Yadus. After returning home, he vividly informed Lord Krishna and Balaram of the actual situation in Hastinapur and the intentions of Dhritarashtra. Akrura was sent to Hastinapur by Krishna to study these, and by the grace of the Lord, he was successful. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 49th chapter of Krishna, ill-motivated Dhritarashtra. Okay, so Krishna is still living at Mathura now, and he's going to be attacked for the 18th time by Jarasandha and who else? Kalyabhana. So this chapter, which we're going to start tonight, is entitled Krishna Erects the Dwarka Fort. Upon Kamsa's death, his two wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages of life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live under the protection of her grown-up sons, or if she has no grown-up sons, she must go back to her father and live as a widow under his protection. It appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. Therefore, after his wives became widows, they returned to the shelter of their father. Now, this was not a happy situation for Jarasandha, because they can't be married again, so he's got these 2 daughters to take care of. He was very unhappy about it. Therefore, after his wives they returned. Kamsa had 2 queens, Asti and Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jarasandha, the lord of the Bihar province, known in those days as Magadha. After reaching home, the 2 queens explained their awkward position following Kamsa's death. The king of Magadha, Jarasandha, was mortified upon hearing of the pitiable condition of his daughters. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. He decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, the whole dynasty of the Yadus should be killed. He began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanxes, consisting of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jarasandha prepared 13 such military phalanxes to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all his military strength, he attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Shri Krishna, who appeared like an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jarasandha, which appeared like an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. He also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were overwhelmed with fear. He began to think within himself about his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation before him. Now, until this point, Krishna had not actually used any formal weapons. If you think about it, he killed Kamsa with his fists, he killed the elephant with the elephant's tusk, he killed Bakasura by breaking his beaks, and he swung in other demons around. He wasn't a Kshatriya yet. But now, suddenly, he's going to manifest his formal Kshatriya nature. You'll see what happens. He thought that since he was not going to conquer the kingdom of Magadha, to kill the king of Magadha, namely Jarasandha, was useless. His mission was to diminish the overburdening population of the whole world. Therefore, he took the opportunity to face so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jarasandha had appeared before him, and he decided to kill the entire force of Jarasandha so that he would go back and reorganize his military strength. There's thousands of elephants, thousands of horses, thousands of infantry. While Lord Krishna was thinking in that way, 2 beautiful chariots, fully equipped with drivers, weapons, flags, and other paraphernalia, arrived for him from outer space. Krishna saw the 2 chariots present before him and immediately addressed his elder brother Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan. My dear elder brother, best among the Aryans, you are the Lord of the universe, and specifically, you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sense great danger before the soldiers of Jarasandha, and they're very much aggrieved. Just to give them protection, your chariot is also here, filled with weapons. I request you to sit on your chariot and kill all these soldiers, the entire military strength of the enemy. The 2 of us have descended to this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose forces and give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity to fulfill our mission. Please let us execute it. Thus Krishna and Balaram, the descendants of Dasharha, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasan. After equipping themselves with military dress, Krishna and Balaram mounted their chariots. Krishna rode the chariot of which Dwaraka was the driver. With a small army, they came out of the city of Mathura, blowing their respective conch shells. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, when they heard the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, their hearts were shaken. What does this remind you of? Beginning of the Gita. Remember? Krishna and Balaram, Krishna and Arjuna, they all blew their conch shells. Bhima blew the conch shells and broke the hearts of the other party. When Jarasan saw Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because they happened to be related to him as grandsons. He specifically addressed Krishna as Purushadama, meaning the lowest among men. Actually, Krishna is known in all Vedic scriptures as Purushottama, the highest among men. Jarasan had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottama, but great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushadama to be, quote, one who makes all other personalities go downward. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti. He gives us these interpretations. Actually, no one can be equal to or greater than Lord Krishna. Jarasan said, it will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram. Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasan specifically addressed him as the killer of his own relatives. Kamsa was Krishna's uncle. Kamsa had killed many of his own nephews, yet Jarasan did not take notice. But because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle, Kamsa, Jarasan tried to criticize him. That's the way of demoniac dealings. Demons don't try to find their own faults or those of their friends, but try to find the faults of their enemies. Jarasan also criticized Krishna for not even being a Kshatriya. Because he was raised by Maharaj Nanda, Krishna was not a Kshatriya but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas, and the word Gupta can also be used to mean hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda. Jarasan accused Krishna of 3 faults: that he killed his own maternal uncle, that he wasn't even a Kshatriya, and that he was hidden in his childhood. And therefore Jarasan felt ashamed to fight him. Next he turned to Balaram and addressed him, you, Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with him, and if you have patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows. Thus you can be promoted to heaven. It's stated in the Gita that a Kshatriya can benefit in either of 2 ways while fighting. If a Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the results of victory. But even if killed, he's promoted to the heavenly planets. After hearing Jarasan speak in this way, Krishna answered, my dear King Jarasan, heroes don't talk much, rather they show their prowess. Because you're talking a great deal, it appears that you are assured of your death in this battle. We don't care to hear you any longer, for it's useless to hear the words of a person who's going to die or of one who's very distressed. To fight with Krishna, Jarasan surrounded him from all sides with great military strength. As the sun appears covered by cloudy air and dust, Krishna, the supreme sun, was covered by the military strength of Jarasan. Krishna's and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda, the palm trees, respectively. So Krishna had Garuda and Balaram had palm trees. The women of Mathura all stood on the tops of the houses, palaces, and gates to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Jarasan's military force and was no longer visible to them, they were so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Jarasan. His small army of soldiers, so it's just like a little squadron, you know, was being harassed. So he immediately took up his bow, named Shanga. This is where it gets kind of gruesome. He took his arrows from their quiver, and one after another he set them on the bowstring and shot them toward the enemy. They were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Jarasan were quickly killed. The incessant arrows shot by Krishna appeared like a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Jarasan. As Krishna released his arrows, all the elephants gradually began to fall, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, their necks severed, and the chariots fell also, along with their flags and the fighters and drivers on the chariots. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell on the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants, horses, and men were killed, and their blood flowed just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of the men appeared like snakes, their heads like tortoises. The dead bodies of the elephants looked like small islands, and the dead horses looked like sharks. By the arrangement of the supreme will, there was a great river of blood filled with paraphernalia. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to see what happens. I just noticed the time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's a cliffhanger. And this scene happens 17 times, so there's a lot of blood flowing in.
Excuse me? Buddy.
prestaya bhutale
Pradikacharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Bhagavad Pandharacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pradikacharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Radhakrishna Giri Gopadan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mahi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mahi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Vaisudeva Bhakti Krishna Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Guru and Gauranga.
All glories to Shri Guru.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
No, there's places that go around.
One second.
Which did you say that?
Yeah, it's up.
What did you say the thick ones?
Hold it, yeah. Oh, the roll those.
Because that one that is regular,
Oh, and then jumbo?
and then the other ones are thicker.
You mean like jumbo, the like really big ones?
Well, there's not the, well, but it's, so I like the big ones.
Just the ones that they look like a, they're like that big,
Well,
and they look like an oval.
I like the thicker ones, because the one's regular and thick. Thick. So I got the thick ones.
Thick, as in they're normal like rolled oats, but they're like.
Anyone get prashadam?
Oh yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so
You got to
So I got
which pieces of burfi here?
I got oats, one,
Did you eat burfi?
chickens,
Oh, you probably.
Oh my god.
and
I have rolled again.
and I got the cranberries, coconut oil.
Wow.
So whatever.
One of them?
I buy them a bag of
One
just a little.
Got a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Yes, how much burfi you eat?
I don't know.
How about some lychee?
How many cups?
They're cups, probably like cups, like around
Here you go.
16 cups.
My husband.
Spoon.
That'll be good.
What's up?
Hare Krishna, please come forward. You like a little bit of sweet something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to? Because I have raw honey, but it's a lot healthier.
What's it?
But it's not the same sugar, the sweetness. You can't
Oh,
taste
there you
it
go.
as much.
Oh, you would wait, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, and then people can add sugar.
Is that okay?
Add sugar. One is more sweet.
So when
Try it first.
on the coming Friday?
Go to Mark, do you want
Can I
anything?
give it to you then?
Maybe.
Okay.
Is there any, just have some burfi there?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Like we don't do like last time.
Or could you bring it tomorrow? Okay, then I can pray for it.
Yeah. Okay, but make it like really, make it big, make it
Sorry
big.
about banging and flanging, but and what we do.
Oh, okay. I got the
It's good, but
What's the,
I mean the whole bag, and whatever you can use,
okay.
give it back. Okay?
Oh, keep it?
No.
No.
Where were you before? Remember? Oh, you're not saying
No, not today.
Puri sabji. Puri?
Huh?
You have puri?
No, you got the Wi-Fi password handy? Oh,
Who's on the schedule for Bhagavad class?
I have 2 days a week. Now I just show up and Wednesday, Friday. Yesterday we dropped state. You give me when we got that approved, we could spend a lot of time here. But he gives a couple of
He's gone now,
He went to my airport for a few weeks.
No, it's about double amount already.
Yeah, he's quite this color.
he was in Tucson about a month ago. I shuttled him around.
Oh, really?